You need to hear this if you're an IT pro thinking about a career change. Buckle up. Welcome to the Counter Surveil podcast, where we dissect the curious world of InfoSec like it's a Sunday roast. Today, we've got the dynamic duo, Havoc and Sledge, duking it out over the quirks and quibbles of working in different InfoSec realms. Ever wondered what it's like to toil away for an MSSP? Think of it as a never-ending roller coaster ride. Loads of thrills, chills, and the occasional urge to hurl. Or perhaps you fancy the chaotic charm of a startup. Imagine herding cats while juggling flaming torches. Then there's government IT, where bureaucracy moves slower than a snail on a Sunday stroll. But hey, job security, right? And let's not forget the ever-so-cushy corporate gig, where you drown in meetings and PowerPoint slides, but enjoy the perks of a cushy chair and free coffee. Stick around, folks. This is one conversation you won't want to miss.
Hello and welcome to the Counter Surveil podcast. I'm your host here with my co-host Sledge. We are going to be talking today about the differences between workplaces. Generally, when you work at InfoSec, there's a million different jobs you could be doing, a million different cultures you could be experiencing. We're going to be talking about four of the most common ones today. Sledge, you've worked a lot of your life doing independent contract work, pen testing, a lot of it from your own company. You've also worked in a variety of other places. I've had my choice of working at many different places over the years as well. So I think a good way to kind of start this out is by going over the little PowerPoint that we put together and then kind of jumping into this. And we're not going to do the PowerPoint in order because honestly, it makes more sense to jump right into the main topic than do the news. So I think that's what we'll do today. You okay with that?
Yeah.
Excellent.
If I can figure out how to freaking fix this. That'll work. Too bright.
It's never been said that you were too bright there. Don't worry about it.
So bright the bulb breaks.
Right. So I'm going to skip through all the PowerPoints here, go all the way to the end. And I'll get that little...
I mean, I could start it off by kind of to start the conversation, like when I first started, right? I was working for MSSP. So all you're dealing with is tickets, and your day-to-day is pretty straightforward. Do this, do that, submit a ticket, escalate, yada, yada. Then as you move on, then you start getting more responsibilities, environments change. When you get into not necessarily an MSSP, but like internal pen test organizations where you're on an internal team and you have to coordinate with all sorts of other people, things start to get hectic. And then when you move up from there, you're actually part of those meetings all fucking day. So I guess that's a way to start the conversation.
It's a pretty good high level of what it's like. Let me get the screen up here. So this is a little mind map I put together to kind of help us keep on track here. And unfortunately, it's a bitch and a half to freaking see in PowerPoint. So maybe I shouldn't have freaking generated it that way. So let me try instead.
You need a different AI.
Opening. I got all the AIs, man. You got an idea for an AI? I got that fucking AI already. People are like, hey, what AI used to do that? I don't know all of them. This is me. So in general, though, like I've worked for MSSPs, I've worked for startups, I've worked for Fortune 500 companies, I've worked for mom and pop shops. It's very different everywhere, right? The culture that you want is really important when you're deciding what job you're going to take, assuming you have a pick between them. So if you're going to be going out for a job in InfoSec, culture is a big thing, man. If you are working at a job and the culture sucks and you hate going to work every day, that's going to wear on you over time. You're not going to be able to keep that job for years on years. That's not going to be like your final destination for jobs. You're going to be looking to hop ship. Corporate culture can be really difficult. It can be toxic. It can be nerve-wracking.
It's tricky to navigate for sure.
You need to use different language, man. You need to use the corporate language. So like I can't write an email to somebody when I'm asking them to help me fix a vulnerability on, say, a web server and being like, what jackass set up this web server and left it vulnerable? This is not the language I can use. What I can
Right, and
do,
I'm used to being able to like just ping a guy and be like, "Hey, here's your problem." But when you get into a big corporation, you got to go through the CI/CD pipeline, and it takes like 3 freaking weeks to get anything done.
yeah, and it's not just the CI/CD pipeline, mind you. You're also going to have to go through corporate change control, which is
Yeah,
going to require putting in a change request and then waiting for a meeting where you justify why you need to have this change done, getting an engineer assigned to make the change, being available when the engineer is making the change. So they might do that outside of normal operational hours, meaning that even if you normally work 9 to 5, you put in a change, you might need to be working 2 in the morning so that they can have you on board in case anything goes wrong when an engineer is actually making the change. It's very different than just being like, hey, telling the web server guy, go fix this, and then watching it being fixed the next day.
yeah.
Patch
That's
man,
the benefit of like. That's kind of why I like working with clients individually from an MSSP or like a security consulting perspective. You can just call them up and be like, "Hey, you got a critical. They'll have it fixed by the morning."
yeah, I mean, you can call them up generally if you're working in like an MSS, you're not working for them, but you're consulting with them is
Yeah,
also very different than if you're on staff with an MSSP or even an MSP, because you're treated differently as an outsider, where you can actually, if you're like a pen tester and you're telling them there's a critical, they're going to push that through the pipeline and try and get that fixed for you quickly if it's a critical. Whereas if you work there and you discover it, they might even take you seriously because that might not be your core job function. Your job is to do X, Y, and Z and respond to these tickets. Oh, you found a critical? Okay, let's have it validated by somebody who knows what the F they're doing. Could be the way you deal with it. How you got to dress every day too, even if you're working remotely. Collared shirt. Can't have messy hair like this.
yeah.
Do something to take care of that. Like maybe put a
It's like
cap on.
even on Zoom calls, I have a dress code.
Right, me too. I work for a Fortune 500 company right now. They're in the energy sector. That's my day job when I'm not doing my pen test company, right? So it's very different than. Good question. I have not used Prezi, but I am familiar with Prezi. I've used it in the past. I just didn't use it for
Prezi is
this.
actually the most badass software I've ever used for presentations. I use it all the time.
Yeah, Prezi's cool shit. Um, so I've come up with a cool process lately where essentially I take a topic, I have Perplexity or ChatGPT break it down into a mind map format and put it in Markdown. And then I go over to the mind map converter website, which is markdown-map.com. And then I convert that into an infographic, which I think works pretty well for the most part. But sometimes they're too big to put in a PowerPoint presentation because you can't zoom in when you're displaying it, which kind of sucks. But overall, it works good for like high-level overviews. Going back to the topic. So
Well, one
what?
second, 1 second. I'm gonna try to move my mic over. My dogs are freaking the hell out. I need to let them out real quick. I can. Well, it's
You
not
go let
working.
your
So
dog.
you keep
You
talking.
answer
I'll
the
be back in
question
a
of who
minute.
let the dogs out, and I will bullshit with the InfoSec news while you're away.
All right, go for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're in for a treat. I actually put together a PowerPoint this week, so you can zone out as I do the news with a PowerPoint. Oh yeah, oh yeah. So I'm gonna share screen, window, this bullshit, and share. Whoa, that was not at all what I wanted to do. One more time, share screen,
Should have
window.
used Prezi.
There you go, man. Next time. So we got Apple changing the iCloud encryption settings, phishing scams exploiting PayPal, AI Safety Institute, quantum computing stuff, all this and more on In the Cast. Apple iCloud encryption changes. Due to some UK demands to backdoor their encryption, Apple has gone the FU route and essentially told everybody in the UK that we're going to remove our advanced data protection feature for everybody in the UK, except if you're a doctor's office or dealing with like patient data, meaning that the majority of users in the United Kingdom, because of their government's insistence to backdoor iCloud backups so that the government just goes through your shit at will, they've decided we're going to turn it off. You don't even get the ability to encrypt your backups anymore. F you. It's kind of their response. So this is negatively affecting the people out there in the UK. Other people, other regions are going to benefit from the enhanced protection measures of having an encrypted backup. If you're in the UK, you're shit out of luck.
So we can't see your shit anymore? What the hell?
I mean, we can still see your shit. It's actually easier for us to see your shit now because now your backups aren't encrypted anymore.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. So this is like a fight back and forth with the courts. The courts are like, we demand that the government be given access to the keys you're going to be using to encrypt your shit. Apple's like, no. This happens all the time. Even though there are companies you can go to like Celebrite that will like open up an iPhone for you if it's locked, Apple is not going to respond and give you the key, which is good on them, right? Protection of so this protects like your iMessages, your FaceTime communications, ensuring that everything's encrypted remains private between you and the person you're talking to. Users are now expressing some disappointment and concern regarding newfound vulnerabilities in their data management on iCloud. They feel like the loss of this advanced protection is undermining their trust in Apple's commitment to privacy. I think the people who think that don't realize the only reason Apple is removing the ability to do the encryption is because their government is demanding they hand over the keys, which would allow the UK government not only to decrypt data from UK citizens, but all around the world. I mean, who the heck wants any world government having the right to be like, they're not even in my country, but I want access to their shit. I have a court order. Give it to me.
Isn't that kind of like Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp, where it claimed to be end-to-end encryption, but technically it's not?
I mean, we've seen many instances of people claiming something's end-to-end encryption that's not. I mean, we've even had entire apps that were developed that claim to be encrypted communications apps that actually have the ability for backup purposes of the people who run the said apps to be able to decrypt any message. That's not true end-to-end encryption. That's just, encryption with extra steps.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this. I'm getting professional notes here from Stefan. Reading the textbook, take notes in lecture, rereading the notes by hand before the test. Each one could be done by AI. Yeah, there are actually AI programs out there like Coursify and other ones that students are using to cheat in class now, which are hilarious to me, that I wish I had access to when I went to school. I had to cheat the old school way of just mounting the teacher's hard drive over the network using the remote access software from the school. But now you can just literally have a Chrome plugin and highlight the question you're being asked in a test and have it just give you the answer, which is kind of neat. Nobody's going to learn anything, but nobody learned anything in school in the first place, so it doesn't really matter.
The last interview I did, the guy was like, didn't they tell you not to wear a headset? And I was like, no, I didn't get the memo. He was like, no headset. You got to use your computer mic and speakers. And I didn't realize why until I was like, oh, he's probably worried about AI giving me answers in my head.
Yeah, there's actually AIs developed for job interviews right now that are pretty expensive monthly, that work very much like Gemini's share your screen feature, where you can share your entire screen during a job interview, and as you're getting your questions, you're being fed the answer over audio. So obviously they'd be a bit hesitant. It's kind of like taking the OSCP exam now when you're trying to do a job interview. If they're doing any live stuff, they're like, set up a camera behind you. It's like, dude, it's a lot of overhead. Also, it makes you wonder about, like, bringing it back to the point, corporate culture. Because if the job interview itself is going to be so worried about you being reliant on tools to be able to answer the question, why would, when you're working there, it be much different culture-wise, right?
Is it a crime for me to Google something when I can't figure it out?
Well, look, there's a difference between Googling something and using an AI to answer the question, because AIs can hallucinate. Some are better than others in that they'll give you their sources, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the ideal way of doing it. Like if you're programming, right? Back in the day, a lot of people would just steal code from Stack Overflow, modify it slightly, and submit it as their own. Nowadays, you've got access to Aider Chat, Copilot, all these freaking tools that make coding like retardedly easy, even if you're not the greatest coder. So you could be submitting code that you yourself don't even understand, meaning you could also be introducing vulnerabilities into a chain and a CI/CD pipeline. If the person who's reviewing your code is also overly reliant on these tools and doesn't know how to code well, then they also might approve a change that could be detrimental to a project as a whole. You could be concluding a vulnerable upstream dependency. Who the hell knows? It's a lot of different shit you can do.
It's that one meme here.
Yeah. Back to the news real quick. PayPal people are getting scammed pretty heavily right now with service at PayPal spoofed emails. So service at PayPal is an email address. PayPal sending out lots and lots of emails to everybody has some issues where essentially they let other people send as them. So when you set up DKIM and you set up all the things you're supposed to set up to do email properly, like SPF, generally it's pretty hard for somebody to spoof as you and that mail to actually get delivered to them without ending up right in the spam mailbox. But when you are delegating the ability to send on your behalf to third parties, such as something like Constant Contact, that means anybody who signs up for Constant Contact and then is allowed to send as any email might just sign up for an account with said mailing system when they see it's whitelisted by your email records, right? And then send emails from the same thing that's whitelisted as you, which is not the smartest thing to be doing, right? So when PayPal delegated the ability for other mailing services to mail on their behalf, people were able to figure out, hey, service at PayPal will let me email out if I use that same service. So they got some really good phishing emails out to people where they're leveraging PayPal's address change feature to do this. By sending legitimate looking emails, they're prompting users to take action, falsely informing them about changes to their accounts. So you're going to get a very realistic email from the actual email PayPal uses that's going to get delivered to your mailbox and not marked as spam, telling you, hey, did you make this purchase for $300 recently when you didn't? And then there's a login button, and that login button doesn't go to the real PayPal. But you might not know that until after you put your creds in, because they are using things like browser in the browser that make it look like you're on the real PayPal site. And if you are not a security expert who knows that this is a fake window that you're interacting with, you could very well hand over your credentials, which is why on top of using MFA and not using SMS as a factor for MFA, you should be very careful about ever clicking a link and then logging into anything. It's always best practice to just go to the website on your own and log in manually. Even if there's a link in the email, unless it's a very specific type of link that you're expecting and you are 100% sure you need to click, always just log into the damn website manually. Don't click the damn link. In fact, when I work, if I have to use the Outlook client, I literally make the change in my client so that all emails I receive are rendered as text. That way, if there's a link in there, I'm going to see where the hell the link is going without even having to have, say, like a proof point thing that's going to put me in a sandbox when I click a link before letting me go to the real website. So this is just, going on. Be careful if you get an email from PayPal. A lot of victims. Yeah.
I just sent you a picture on Signal. You should totally throw that up on screen. It's a phishing attack that I just helped clean up a friend's computer, and it was so freaking stupid. I can't believe it even worked.
The Wells Fargo and Screen Connect shit?
Yeah. The fact that it was being hosted on Google domain, like Google Drive, was insane. So if you look at the download history, you can piece together what happened.
Yep. So they grabbed a PDF file that's purported to be from Wells Fargo, likely their bank.
So
and then
she got an email
tech support
from
scammer.
Geek Squad, quote unquote Geek Squad, and they convinced her to download this remote management tool, and then they convinced her to get onto her bank account. And when they asked her to log into her account, she started getting freaked out and said, fuck off, yada yada, and never actually gave her the credentials, but they did have access to some of her PDFs, which has routing and bank account numbers. And she got really freaked out because she forgot to close the RMN software. And she noticed the cursor moving around her screen the next day. And that's when they called me. And I was like, oh, let me take a look.
Yeah. That's kind of the wipe and reinstall method.
That's what we
there.
did. Yeah. I took all the evidence just to fuck with it, and turns out the domain they're using has already been taken down.
Has it really been taken down, or did they change it so that when you view it from a browser that's not what they're expecting, it redirects somewhere else?
The URL itself is down. They probably changed it.
Maybe.
Because like when you open up the RMM tool, the executable, you can see where it's going, and at 404s, it's gone.
Just because something 404s doesn't mean it's gone. I mean, if you're a lot of ways you can throw up a 404 error message.
Is wrong. 404 isn't the right word, but it's completely gone. I was trying.
Okay.
And the IP was like either Moldova or Russia. Those are the two things that came up.
Moldova is pretty good. There are a lot of cyber criminals who take advantage of Moldova's privacy laws, get away with doing a lot of the same shit as Nigerians with 419 scams.
Yeah. That was so, $100.
There you go. Take the money and run. That's the rule of thumb. And when she calls you up in a week and has another issue, it's another $100. This is not free follow-up land. Which brings us back to work culture. So when you're working as an independent contractor, you always kind of have the leeway to take on a gig where you're working with somebody independently. They call you up, hey, I need help. Okay, $100, I'll fix it for you, right? Cool.
Mm-hmm.
If you're working for certain companies, you're not allowed to do that. It's in your employment contract. You can't take on side work. And if you actually, some companies have shit in their contracts, if you read it carefully, that says anything you work on while you're an employee of the company, even if done on your own time, they own the intellectual property rights to. So if you write a cool program that you want to open source, that company now owns said program, and you can't open source it because it's their property, even if you wrote it on your own time. I have a
company that works for a Fortune 100, massive 3-letter company, 12 patents that he does not have the rights to anymore. It sucks. So screwed up, man.
Yeah. It happened to the dude who made Winamp, dude. His company got bought, Nullsoft got bought by AOL Time Warner, right? And there's a whole episode, I think it was Darknet Diaries, it might be one of the similar podcasts, where they go into really good depth about how this dude made a peer-to-peer tool very similar to like Napster back in the day, but was not allowed to release it because AOL found out he had developed this, and they literally hit him with a court order telling him he can't release the software he's written. I think he did anyway as a FU, but you know.
Just give it to somebody else and let them release it. They got hacked.
He really whipped the llama's ass on that one. So we are seeing an uptick also, like you just showed us, on calls to fraudulent support numbers. You call up this phone number, and then it says, we need to remote it to your computer to fix an issue. And they toss it, convince you to install their bullshit software and give access to the scammers. The AI Institute, AI Safety Institute is a thing that the government was doing under the Biden administration. They just saw some layoffs and budget cuts under the Trump administration. They had up to 500 employees impacted. This is part of the rollback of Biden's AI safety executive orders, raising eyebrows regarding the future of AI safety initiatives in the U.S. and concerns over safety capabilities. So as the budget unfolds, yada, 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 most of it being less money for people who are trying to make sure the machines don't go Skynet on us. Hey, I, for one, welcome our new AI overlords.
I welcome our overlords.
The director also resigned. I believe he's also going to get 8 months of salary still because of the way that they're doing these resignations. He resigned in protest, mind you, so maybe it may be different for him.
I mean, the 8-month thing is amicable, I'd say.
Yeah, it's
Better
a pretty
than
good way to go
fuck you,
about it.
you're out.
Google has been working on some quantum resistant stuff that they're allowing people to use who do not work for Google. They've integrated quantum safe digital signatures following NIST guidelines ahead of the proposed time that it needs to be rolled out, introducing new technologies, well, not really new, but MLDSA 65 and SLH-DSA SHA-2. These are things that are difficult for quantum computers to crack. Now, look, not many people have access to a quantum computer. It's very, very expensive. But Google has put out a chip that is supposed to make it easier for large, rich organizations to have access to quantum computing power, meaning
I thought it
that
was IBM that did that. Maybe I'm wrong. I saw an
um,
article about one company making one like a really small one that's super powerful.
I thought that was Alphabet, but I mean, if you have an article, I'd be happy to toss it up if you find it.
I'm lazy.
Regardless of which big tech company came up with this chip, the gist of it is the access to quantum systems is becoming more democratized. It is more easy for corporations, at least. Hey, they have corporate personhood, we can call them people, to be able to access this tech, which in the hands of a nation state can be used to do some pretty evil shit in terms of being able to decrypt things on the fly that otherwise would be very difficult for a regular person to decrypt. So there are new algorithms out there that are quantum resistant, meaning it is difficult for a quantum computer to break them. Ironically, in the past, some of these quantum algorithms they came up with, Sledge, they were actually easily breakable on like an old school dual core processor, but almost impossible for a quantum computer to break. And like that was pretty fucking funny, honestly. They didn't
Keep
think
it
about that
simple,
one.
stupid.
So by adopting these quantum resistant technologies, Google's taking proactive steps to safeguard digital transactions. It's because we know Google always has our best interests in mind, right?
Buzzword, buzzword, buzzword.
They're also putting out this KMS software solution that their customers can use. This is kind of like your average PAM solution for storing passwords and shit, but this is instead for storing secrets. A little different, but same premise. We got some cool incidents this week. The largest ever successful ransomware attack was conducted by North Korea's Lazarus Group, where they were able to pop this Bybit exchange. Now, look, they didn't pop this in the traditional sense, right? They did not actually hack into the exchange. They came up with a really clever way to screw with people doing transactions on the exchange. So the way this one works is when you are using using their official wallet, their official shit to make a transaction. So the threat actor made it so you are sent an Ethereum transaction at the same time that you receive like a request to pay somebody. So the gist of this is like you're going to get this wallet address that's going to be the most recent one in your wallet address, and they made the first bunch of numbers and the last bunch of numbers match the actual transaction you just got. So when you get this, it's now above the last transaction you got, and it's for like it's a very small amount of Ethereum, like the least amount you can send after gas fees. And then there's the real transaction under it. And then to the end user, they both look like they came from the same address because they have the same start digits and the same end digits. And the Android and iOS apps only display the last few digits to the user. So then they go to send the money to the person, and they select the last address that was in their wallet that received a transaction. And guess what? That is the threat actor they're sending the money to. Pretty freaking cheeky. 1.5 billion taken in Ethereum through this method, and before they realized what was going on. That's a lot of money, dude. Like that's the biggest freaking hack in the crypto world. It might be the biggest financial hack yet, I think.
I don't know
for
about
sure.
that.
1.5 billion is a lot.
Every time we hear about crypto hacks, it's in the billions, and everybody says it's the biggest ever.
So they also lost money from their cold wallet. They've assured users that other wallets are still secure. They're engaged in extensive recovery efforts. Whole thing's kind of a shit show, honestly. So here's a little map I made of this using some AI bullshit.
Zoom in on that?
You're funny.
You're funny
No,
looking.
I'll see if I can actually. Zoom. Nope.
Ugh.
There's no zooming in Excel.
Oh well, whatever. We get the gist. I can't
Uh,
even see it though.
fuck me. All right. I have an idea. I'm gonna unshare my screen here. I'm gonna grab the freaking picture itself, and I'm gonna grab this shit and I copy it, and I'm gonna go fucking paint.net right here. And I'm gonna paste that shit right in here, and then share paint.net so I can zoom. Is it a sketchy workaround? Yes. Do I care? No.
Hey, we're hackers. Make it work.
If it works, it's fine. You know, there's nothing more. I forgot what it is, but essentially, who gives a fuck?
There you go.
All right. So zooming in, technical analysis. We got the cold wallet multi-sig vulnerability exploitation, sophisticated social engineering tactics, complex transaction splitting, multiple addresses identified, and this is the Lazarus Group's attack pattern. Market impact. We saw a 5% ETH price decline because of this. Increased exchange scrutiny, reduced trading volume on Bybit. This way, let's make sure we don't get hit the same way.
5%. That's
Um,
that's not small.
Current status of their investigation. Services are partially restored. Can you see it okay? Let me make it bigger still.
You can't really see it, but yeah, whatever. Good enough.
You can see it. I can see it. You can see it. It's fine. It's fine.
The contrast.
I could make it just a little bigger in here, I guess. I'm gonna do
It's
this
just
shit.
the color contrast.
How's that?
Yeah, good enough.
God damn it. You know,
it's fine.
You can please some of the people some of the time, but you can't please Sledge any of the time.
If you're reading it, it's fine, but the color contrast,
so breach...
you can't really make it out.
Nah. I blame your shitty high-res monitors that use IPS. This breach represents one of the largest cryptocurrency heists in history and serves as a crucial reminder of the importance of continuous security improvements. So, what else have we got? The Lazarus Group connection, North Korean state-sponsored hackers, notable previous exploits. They hit Harmony Bridge for 100 million. 1.5 billion in Ethereum stolen in this one. Single cold wallet was the source, essentially, that all the money came out of, and unusual transaction patterns were the way they were able to identify this happening. I imagine if I ran an exchange and all of a sudden I saw a whole bunch of stuff going not to the intended address and a bunch of people complaining, I'd be pretty quick to jump on that, you know? I sent somebody money, but it went somewhere else.
Where's our blockchain security guys?
Yeah, I mean, we got a few of them on staff, so to speak, but none of them are available tonight. We did see an immediate withdrawal suspension for 24 hours as a stopgap measure. They enhanced their protocols. Blockchain analytics firm was engaged. Law enforcement was notified. They told the users what's going on. Good for them. And they also committed that they are going to make all these users affected whole. To the tune of 1.5 billion is a lot, though. And I wonder, I don't think most exchanges do that much profitable business in a year where they can afford to spend 1.5 billion to make up for a threat actor stealing money.
So here's a question, though. Isn't blockchain, or Bitcoin, the only one actually recognized by the IRS?
Ethereum, is that a security, if you're asking? I'm not sure.
I mean, I believe Bitcoin is the only one recognized as an actual currency or storage of value. So, if you steal Ethereum, is that theft in the eyes of the government?
I mean, if it's considered an asset, I'd argue that they can get involved, whatever the cryptocurrency may be. Was CrowdStrong supposed to present tonight? Yes, but CrowdStrong decided to go have a beer with Alfkey and is out still doing that. So they're doing that together. Sledge, can you sort your mic? It says. Apparently your mic sucks. I kind of think your mic sucks too. Sort your mic.
Actually, what's going on with it? Tell me. I need feedback.
All right, it's echoey.
Is it echoey?
And echoey. Maybe just switch to your Jabra and pull your thing down.
Now, when that happens, I have to do this.
Oh, so you're going to turn it off and on again.
That usually works.
Sledge, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
It says you're too low.
How about now?
Can you raise your volume now? Okay. He still says nope. Well, I might be able to fuck with your mic gain over here if you give me 1 second. Let's go
Like,
edit
is it too
mic
loud or
settings. I'm going to turn off echo cancellation and raise your volume a lot. Now say something.
Something, something, something.
I guess that's better.
I'm a little teapot.
You're short and stout. So the Bybit thing, right? We kind of covered that. Ransomware attacks are linked to China, obviously. We're seeing an uptick in China's activity, according to ransomware shit. We are also seeing some really fun crypto-related news. Don't have the article up. Just this one was the Biden administration, and obviously happened during the Biden administration, not necessarily the fault of the Biden administration. But the Marshal Service was given a large amount of cryptocurrency that was seized from the Silk Road, seized from Ross, seized from other people too over the years. And they're supposed to be holding on to this so the government can do with what they please with it. They're now, like when the FBI or one of these big 3-letter agencies gets a bunch of crypto, they're very careful about how they handle it. Like they'll only send it over encrypted comms. They'll make sure there's a clear chain of custody. What the Marshal Service decided to do was to take all of the passphrases for the wallets to be able to get back into them, your recovery seed phrase, and put them into an Excel spreadsheet and share it on a open SMB share to everybody who works at the company. Arguably not the wisest way, and some of it has gone missing. I can't imagine that somebody might be tempted when they just got a letter that their job is in jeopardy to maybe take some crypto in a spreadsheet that nobody's tracking well and make off with it. But we don't know if that's what happened. I actually don't know the addresses to be able to go look at them and see if any of them have actually been accessed. But the gist of the article is the Biden administration also asked for them to let them know how much crypto they've got, and in terms of if you were going to convert that into fiat, so that they could liquidate it, because there were plans before Trump took office to liquidate crypto holdings so that then the Trump administration would have to buy them back at a higher price because, politics, right? This whole thing is just fucked, honestly.
And then they were also talking about taxing every single transaction, which I thought was just dumb.
Yeah. I mean, look, they're trying to figure out how they can tax the crypto landscape. The whole point of crypto was it's supposed to be currency the government is not involved in. Now, you can argue that if you're going to turn anything into cash, it can be taxed, and they already do that at the exchanges. So, I don't know, man.
Tax it when you realize it. Tax it when you cash out, not every freaking transaction.
Well, they want to maximize the profitability for the government from this scenario, is the gist.
Yep. Government's going to government.
Government is going to freaking government. That's all they do, except when they get fired, which is also amusing, at least to those of us who aren't impacted by it.
Yeah.
Shit, man. So our core topic this week that we want to talk about is culture, I think, at companies. So you've worked at an MSSP, I have too. A lot of it's elevating stuff to clients, making sure they're aware of what's going on in their network. There are different cultures at different MSSPs. When I worked at one back in New York, I was out in Melville. I'm not going to name it, but the culture there was very much corporate, right? You had to come to work dressed nice. You had to sit in front of your machine all night or all day. You had a break like once, and you could go to the break room You had to badge in and out of everywhere. It was very locked
Mhm.
down. You couldn't go on the internet when you were on shift and go look at stuff. They had a TV that you could watch that'd be playing like the History Channel, but you were not allowed to get on the actual internet from the SOC. And I think that's a good idea if you're running a
You
SOC.
can if you're
Not like,
creative enough.
right. There are only certain websites that were whitelisted. And yes, of course, I figured out how to pivot the hell out, but your average analyst is not going to know how reverse SSH tunnels work. So, gist of it being that when you're working
So
at a place, there's different cultures. So go ahead, Sledge.
I would say let's define definitions. What is an MSSP?
Managed Security Service Provider. So an MSSP is an organization that is responsible for the security monitoring and sometimes also the response to security incidents for other organizations. Very much like a managed service provider, an MSP does the IT for a bunch of companies, and an SSP does the security for a bunch of companies.
So, like when you're starting out in the industry, usually you start out as MSSP. You're that guy that finds things and escalates it to the people that can fix the problem.
Correct. So a lot of the times, a very good entry level job for somebody getting into the industry. And a lot of the times we will recommend, even if you're interested in offensive security, go take a job at a SOC to start, right?
That's the
Because
first rung of the ladder.
it is bottom level. Now, there are other paths, right? You don't have to start there, but it's a very common way that people who are in our industry have gotten started. So
And it gives you a good idea of corporate life, too. Something to expect as you keep going through your career and growing.
you have to learn politics at work is the gist.
Yeah.
If you want to be successful, if you want to someday be like a CIO, CEO, CSO, any of the COs, really, like you need to learn politics is kind of the gist. You need to learn the corporate communication style, covering your ass, and also a lot of it is very Machiavellian in my opinion. There's a reason when I've been offered jobs to be a chief security officer for companies, I've turned them down and have stayed as a senior engineer because I don't want to deal with people. I want to deal with tech. Like I'm okay dealing with people. I can manage a team. I've managed teams before. I'm pretty good at it, but I don't want to be responsible for an entire organization's security with the politics that comes with that. If you get the politics out of it and there's somebody else who dealt with it, I'd be fine with it. I can tell you how to secure your network. I can tell you how to do segmentation. I can tell you how to set up your firewalls properly, all that bullshit. But
And
when it
like,
comes to the stuff they're going to teach you if you go to take like the CISSP, the domains of information security, the CIA triangle, all this kind of shit. At the end of the day, if you're an engineer fixing shit, doesn't usually affect you unless you need to maybe get a change control in. So you need to then understand that that's going to affect the A and that triangle, the availability, and you need to schedule it and all that kind of stuff. But that's why they have things in place for that. I don't want to do that. That's not what I'm interested in doing for a living. I want to hack
and
shit.
another part of corporate culture is if your tech skills don't speak for yourself, you need to have a good pair of knee pads.
Kissing ass is expected in corporate culture, I think. Now, in a startup, it's a lot different. Like I've worked at startups too. Their culture is very different. The expectation of having meetings all the time is different. The actual like what you do when you come into work is different too. A lot of people are going to wear multiple hats in a startup. So you might have a job title that says you're a security engineer, but you might also be on the ground writing software, deploying stuff, implementing a CI/CD pipeline, building out like their vulnerability response program, installing things like Nessus, web app scanners,
Agile,
aggregating
Scrum,
reports,
all that bullshit.
standing up a ticketing system if they don't have one already, or deciding if they even want to have a ticketing system or if they want to use something else.
Snow.
Please don't. I'm traumatized by ServiceNow still. Jira's worse, but Snow's not great either. If you really hate yourself, go install OS Ticket and try and make that work in a corporate environment. Regardless of what you choose, organization's important. And I'm not just talking organizational structure, right? actually being organized and understanding who's doing what. Kanban boards are good for that. You can see who's working on what, who's got what progress. A lot of startups are going to use Kanban boards
I
to
was
track
honestly
progress.
just talking to somebody about that last night. He swears by it. It was pretty cool.
They are pretty useful, man. I use them. My company has one within our ServiceNow instance, right? But I also use one myself. I pay for, and I have one in my Nextcloud that I use also for different projects. Keeping track of what you're working on can be difficult when you're switching task to task. You don't want things to fall off your radar.
Especially when there's like 20 teams working on the same project and you're trying to communicate with 100 freaking people.
It's another thing, duplication of effort you want to look out for. So if you've got somebody working on something and they're making good progress, shouldn't be assigning another team to be doing the same thing. But it happens a lot in corporate culture if they're not well organized.
If you can't communicate properly, there's too many cooks in the kitchen.
That's very common, though. There being too many cooks in the kitchen. In corporate culture, with like project managers getting involved, I've seen things assigned to 2 separate project managers and have 2 separate teams working on the same damn thing, not realizing the other team's working on it.
Yeah.
It happens. Companies are big enough that when they're absorbing other companies, and now you've got multiple teams who are absorbed from different companies, they could be working on similar things. And if there's not good organization, now people will be like, well, how do you do that? Do you have meetings? Meetings, in my opinion, are mostly a waste of time. 90% of them could be a freaking email, right?
It's literally to make people feel important.
It is.
Swear to God, my opinion.
So corporate culture, different than startup culture, different than MSSP culture, generally. Now, if you're running your own pen test firm, right? A lot of guys like me or Sledge, we might, if we have somebody in our network who we know is better at something, we can be like, hey, man, I'm doing a test. I'm going to send you an NDA, sign it, get it back to me, and I'm going to have you help me with this. And if they're better at something than we are, it's not an ego thing. People specialize in stuff, man. So Sledge might be great at an internal pen test if all systems are mostly, say, Linux, right? Where
Let's just say we all have our bad days, and sometimes you need a second pair of eyes. And when it comes down to the wire and you want a second pair of eyes, hey, bro, you want some money? Take a look at this. See what you can find.
Right. And it's great to be able to have that flexibility. Now, if you're a big corporate pen testing firm, you're not allowed to do that shit, man. If you're working for like Relic, I don't think they're going to be like, hey, you can go ask your friends for help on this pen test. There's a very different expectation there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So another cultural thing when it comes to companies, who does what, how they do it. I think at the end of the go ahead.
No, finish your point.
At the end of the day, the culture of where you want to work is just as important as the salary, because you could be making a lot of money and hate going to work every day and just be looking for another job when you're not working, because even if you're making a lot of money, there's more to work-life balance than making a lot of money. You got to also take into account hours and stuff. Like some jobs will tell you when you're getting hired, this is a 40-hour-a-week job. You're going to be salaried, but there might occasionally be a need for overtime. You don't get paid overtime because you're salaried as opposed to hourly, right? But then when you're actually working the job, the team, everybody's working like 90-hour weeks. They told you it's going to be a 40-hour job. If you don't put in 90 hours, you're looked down upon compared to everyone in your team. You might lose your job as a result. These kind of things are common in our industry. We see Deltrai at the job he's at, man, fucking guy's miserable. He's running an entire MSSP pretty much by himself with a bunch of people who don't know what the hell they're doing.
Using AI for their...
Dude, if I ever had an analyst take logs and dump them into ChatGPT without running that by me first, they would not still have a job.
Yeah, that's insta-fire. That is breaching so many freaking privacy rules and regulations.
We saw what happened with DeepSeek recently when all the queries that the users had been making to that system were leaked in a literally SQL injection attack. What year is it that there's SQL injection attacks on their shit? So arguably, anything you submit to these third parties, at some point might become breached data. And if you're using like ChatGPT all day long and dumping corporate documents into it, I mean, that's ridiculous. You should be fired for that, honestly. I mean, there should be a
So,
policy in place. Also, policy is another thing we go into, and the need for creating policy. But yeah,
so note to self, point one, if you're going to use AI or chat GPT or something to help you figure out if an alert is bad or not, get rid of all the sensitive PII out of it and then see what answer you get. That's one way to go about it. And
local
then the other,
model. If you're just
yeah,
parsing logs, if it's XML or
yeah,
have
just
them
strip all the
stand up.
IPs out, call it XXX or 000, something that's not identifiable. Get rid of all the host names, all of that. And then the
Even
other
then,
point I was going to make, though, is like when you're working for a company where you're like 9 to 5 specifically, like I'm at a job right now for the first time in my life, I have to clock in and clock out. Well, in the realm of tech, I have to clock in and clock out, which is so weird to me. Because when I was working for a pen test firm, I would just log in whenever I felt like it, show up to meetings. I could work all night, all morning, all weekend, whatever. As long as the job got done, nobody cared. So that's another aspect of the certain types of jobs you can have. And I loved that. That was so cool. Because it's like, sure, the report's due Friday. And I'm like, well, there's a little bit more we can look at. I don't mind working on the weekends. And I'm not going to get paid extra for it. I just don't mind. And I like what I do. So screw it.
it's flexibility, man, and that's important. A lot of corporate jobs, if they're using, say, Microsoft Teams, you're expected to be online and available from the hours that you're working, especially if you're working remote. And some managers who are not quite used to the paradigm shift of remote work will just randomly call you and ask you nonsense questions to ensure you're at your desk and working
Yep.
and not effing off.
They literally just implemented that last month.
It's ridiculous, man. Look, in the day and age we're at, if you're getting your work done and you're accessible within like 5 to 10 minutes when somebody needs you, there's no reason to mandate your employees to be sitting at a desk from 9 to 5 if they're producing what you need them to be producing, in my opinion. It's
What
just a
really
legacy
pisses me
holdover.
off, what really pisses me off with Teams is if it doesn't see your mouse move within 10 minutes, it says you're offline, and that's when they'll start to ping you.
You remember that old program called Caffeine that just hits F13 like once a
Yeah.
minute? It works very well with Teams.
I know a guy, I think his name is Bob or Alice, I don't know, but he's got this really cool mouse jiggler thing.
Funny story about mouse jigglers. Not Russia, it was China, was sending mouse jigglers to companies for their employees that they were targeting that had backdoors in them where they're working like your typical ducky script that are going to 99% of the time is going to work to jiggle the mouse. And then once in a random ass blue moon, it's going to pop up the command prompt window and type PowerShell code and initiate reverse shell. And they literally send them to companies with that company's branding on them, just like a USB drop attack. And
That's fucking brilliant.
It's great shit, man.
I want to try that.
Dude, I imagine even if you send it to people, just looking at like a LinkedIn, like for a company, and identified like the developers, and then sent them a nicely packaged mouse jiggler that had like their company logo on it, claiming it's like swag or something, those idiots would fucking plug it in.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with the need, like a lot of stuff's gesturing, posturing. Like they need to stay on Teams, right? Politics bullshit. They need to show specifically like this thing that's going on with Musk, where he's telling them they gotta just say 5 things that they do. Don't even have to be verifiable. Not going into politics land, but like if you can't say 5 things you did in a week, you're probably not working. Like I could list like 30 things I did today at work, and this was a slow day for me. So if you can't say 5 things, I mean, it's kind of like, what the fuck are you doing?
And with the job I'm at now, they have these little tasks that you have to itemize and put how many hours you do each thing each time. So I'm like, how many hours did I spend on meeting? How many hours did I spend talking with coworkers trying to figure something out, how many times did I actually spend doing the job. And when I start adding it all up, it's like, I got maybe an hour and a half to actually do the thing because I was on meetings all day.
Yeah. Yeah, I assume you're using ServiceNow then, because that sounds very
Yeah.
much like their time entry module.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So ServiceNow is bullshit, right? The way that they keep track of time is also garbage, in my opinion. Like some companies are going to be like, you need to put your time in every day for everything you did. Other ones are going to be like, at the end of the week, you need to put in your time for everything you did throughout the week. I'd argue most people, as a result of that, what I personally used to do when I was required to do this, I would work while I was in meetings and then bill for both. And so I'd have time I was working. I'd have the meeting taking up like 1.5 hours, and the work I was doing during the meeting taking up 1.5 hours, both in ServiceNow as billable, just because you don't have to put in the actual time that you're doing it. You just have to allocate how much time you did.
As long as it equals 8, nobody cares.
You only have 8? I have 9. Anyway, productivity is not what's being measured here. It's bullshit metrics so that they can justify your salary.
Correct.
Now, when I run like a pen test, you saw you and I did a good one recently. I mean, I wouldn't nag the crap out of you. I left you to your own devices. You did good shit. We got a good report out. The client was very happy. There's no need to be like every 10 minutes, hey, what are you doing? That's ridiculous in this modern age, especially for the culture associated with a pen test firm.
I will not work for somebody that micromanages to that extent. That's just fucking dumb.
And arguably, if you can do a pen test better than me and do it in 3 hours, where it would take me 15 hours, I would rather have you do 3 hours and just charge that out to the client than waste 15 hours, right? I mean,
that's honestly a different argument, because that's why a lot of us charge per project, not by hour.
Yeah, Drew was mentioning that you know, he charges by project now. I still charge by hour, but I'm probably going to change that.
Me and him talked about that like 3 or 4 years ago at Black Hat when I was starting Desert Rain. So we were discussing how much do you charge per hour, and he was like, "Man, I just charge by the project." And I was like, "Okay, let me try that."
I mean, I've scoped out projects where I thought I was going to need X amount of hours, and then it turned out I needed a lot more, and they ended up eating shit because of what I estimated was wrong. And then other times where I overestimated and I had free time at the end, so I just did other shit to add more value to the report. It can go
that comes down to live and learn on your scoping.
Yeah. Scope creep's a bitch too. Like, agree to something and then they come back and are like, yeah, we want you to do this too. It's like you have to have somebody really firm managing your shit, telling them no.
Hey, if that happens, I would be like, that is a second project. We're going to put that in a different SOW.
Very well done. And like when it comes to corporate culture, right? A lot of them require a pen test 1 or 2 times a year. Bigger companies, it's a checkbox. And arguably one of the biggest problems we have in our industry are people who are selling VAs as pen tests. They're just giving them scanner tool output that's prettified and they haven't verified shit. I've seen pen tests like this, and we spent a lot of money getting them from very reputable companies, at least in the past, who have kind of fallen from grace. I think CISOs like getting VAs as pen tests. And my argument here is that they want to get them because it's not going to actually show anything that's wrong. So they're going to look like a freaking rock star with just a vuln scan from the external saying, yep, you're all good. All let's expose their firewalls and websites. And the websites maybe have some jQuery and CSV shit you could do better.
And your SSL's out of date or whatever.
It's like shit nobody cares about. It's not going to lead to compromise. A pen test is like showing path to compromise and explaining how you got there so they can fix it. That's a VA is just scanner tool output, man. And it's you do VA plus, right? And then you at least verify your scanner tool output, which arguably is better than what some of these shops give. There's a market for things that just turn Burp Suite reports in the XML format and like Nessus scans into freaking pretty reports. And there's a use for those tools, right? I'm not going to say there's not, but that's not pen testing. That's VA, and it's a separate offering that you you should not be calling a pen test.
So this is actually an interesting thing because I am brand new to the world of SAST and DAST, to where they're constantly vuln scanning the code and the app itself in prod. And they manage those vulnerabilities. Even if they're the lowest of low, their goal is to get rid of all of them and keep track of it. And then the pen testers come in and try to find anything that's actually verifiable and exploitable. So it's an interesting mix of both worlds.
I got something for you. I was watching one of those podcasts this morning, and the dude was talking about his CI/CD pipeline and a really cool tool that just came out that helps you with a lot of that code review shit. And I'm going to find it for you now as we're talking about other stuff, because I think this would be very useful for you. Just give me a
so
minute.
now I am the vulnerability scan SAST manager-ish and the pen tester. So I'm wearing a bunch of hats now, so whatever.
What would you say are the key differences between static and dynamic analysis when it comes to code review?
To my knowledge, static is it's actually going through the code. Dynamic is when the app is actually running.
Accurate. So a lot of the times, these CI/CD pipelines, they have a step when you're going through your shit where the person who has written the code checks it in on, say, GitHub, right? And then that code, before it's being pushed to production on like a main branch, needs to then be signed off by a second person who then approves the pull request, right? Very, very common. They now have also these tools you toss in the middle, which are AI tools for the most part, and they analyze the code that's there for common vulnerabilities, easily overlook things that could cause a buffer overflow if, say, it's C++ code, or, like, these tools are pretty good. And I used to use SonarQube to do this back in the day. Now they have this stuff integrated right into GitHub to a degree. And this podcast I was watching this morning, the guy, I have to freaking look at the notes I took real quick while we're talking. But this tool was able to catch those upstream issues that we talk about all the time, where you have like
S-bomb shit.
S-bomb shit, yes. So when you have like a vulnerable dependency in your code that's upstream, it was able to find those like 90-something% of the time, which arguably is way better than the other tools that claim to do this, and it was free. So let me find it for you, because it might be something you can integrate into your pipeline.
It just gets really, really complicated when you've got 300 apps and each app has its own team in and of itself. So getting all those people to communicate under the same tool, under the same playbook, whatever communication process, that's what gets really complicated.
Of course. I mean, communication is always going to be the biggest issue, especially with developers, because a lot of them are very solo and don't like to work well in teams.
It's like, whose job is this? Who does that? Who did this?
And arguably, in your environment, if you're doing any kind of vulnerability management stuff, you should have a very clear list of who your POC for any given topic is, so that you know who to reach out to. Even if it's just their managers for each team, you should have that shit handy so that you don't have to guess and be messaging people on teams like, hey, who's in charge of this? Trying to figure that needs to be well defined, as well as like your external attack surface mapped to the internal systems. So like if you're going to do a port forward on port 443 from your local box out to the internet, that's going to be like a 1-to-1 443. That's cool. But a lot of the times what's going to be running locally might be, say, 8443 mapped to, say, port 443 on one specific IP address on like 500 external IPs you might have. And knowing what every port externally matches to internally is something most companies don't really keep track of very well, that they really should. Because when you find something externally in a vuln scan, it shouldn't be a month-long process to then track down what that correlates to internally so you can go get somebody to go fix it.
there's also an argument here to be made about the quality of your reports, because if you find something, make it very clear in your executive summary and everything to where the people up top know who to assign the findings to, and they can handle it from there. Just got to be really clear about it.
Yeah.
Because they know everybody. I won't, but the guys at the top do.
Well, the guys at the top generally are going to have like an idea, but a lot of the times the guys at the top don't know like the nitty gritty of what everybody's doing day to day. Like there's a lot of room for people to lose communication through like the multiple layers of management that exist in some organizations.
Well, what I mean by that is like we just tested XYZ, ZYX. These are the findings we found on XYZ. They could see that and be like, okay, let's send this to the manager of XYZ. Oh, you found one from YZX. Let's send this to that team. That kind of thing.
Gotcha. What I've seen happen a lot is when an organization is big enough, it's very confusing who's even pushed what code, and that can be a major issue if you have bad code pushed. There needs to be really good tracking in place of every kind of commit as far as code if you're an organization that's coding stuff, right?
Oh, man. It's a great idea, but Jesus, it takes so much time.
Well, that's why, like, if you're on a sandy foundation, right, you're going to be constantly sinking, and you keep making progress, but then it's just going to keep sinking. So you got to like get the core stuff down first. Like, one, having your list of people you need to reach out to for any given thing. Like, say you've got websites that you manage and they run multiple different frameworks. Like, you're not just standardized on one stack. You got maybe Apache servers over here, IIS shit over here. You got maybe Nginx over there, and multiple different languages being coded for different teams, pushing different features. You got an Oracle team over there doing stuff, and you got different people who manage databases, different people who update the actual underlying software on the system, if it's like a Linux box or a Windows box.
And then different third-party companies getting involved too.
Yeah. What was the software?
It could easily become a shit show really quick.
It will become a shit show very quick. And the issue is then they fire somebody and replace them, thinking that will fix the issue, when oftentimes it's a systemic issue with the way that the place is organized. And they don't necessarily always give the person who's tasked with fixing a problem the teeth to fix the problem. So you might be in charge and have the responsibility if this system that's internet facing gets hacked, but you don't have the ability to make changes to the system on your own. You need to rely on somebody else to make said changes, and when you tell them it needs to be done, they tell you no.
And yeah, if you replace the guy, you're starting from scratch again because he's not going to know what the hell's going on.
So a lot of the times, this is just toxic corporate culture shit, where it's kind of like pass the buck to the next person.
Who's the next scapegoat?
Yeah.
I just saw an example of that this week. A CEO got fired, a new one came in, took his money, and quit.
A lot of the times we're going to see people. So the CISO role right nowadays has really shifted from what it originally was, and now it's more of like a scapegoat if shit goes wrong role. And I think a lot of CISOs tend to jump ship when they realize there's going to be a breach that's going to happen because of how bad shit is set up in their environments. And then it's kind of just like the Catholic Church hiding the priest and the pedophile with the shuffle game. Like, here's the priest, here's the pedophile, here's the priest, here's the pedophile. It's like, here's CISO who fucked up. Here's the new CISO who's going to take the blame. And this one who took the blame for this one, now he's going to be over here, and we're going to get a new CISO. It's like crazy. It's no responsibility. We get assholes like the Uber CEO back in the day who literally just paid a threat actor to not release the data and told nobody and paid for it out of his own pocket and then got caught later. And obviously that's a huge monumental fuck up.
New CISOs be like, this isn't where I parked my car.
So the company that puts out these two free tools is called Arrow, I believe. I gotta figure out how it was spelled. Arrow. I was there this morning and I can't find it in my bookmarks. Arrow. Maybe if I just Google it, code audit tool. I think one was called like Protect or something. None of these are it.
Ask Perplexity.
So I'm using GPT. It's got the transcript of the YouTube video. Unfortunately, it's going by what it sounds like he says rather than what actually, it's like OCR getting shit wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So it says the malicious code detection tools were released by Arrow, a security research group. They developed 2 open source tools designed specifically to detect and block malicious code before it's integrated into software projects. The tools utilize comprehensive static analysis rule sets for semantic reputation and open graph. They feature a GitHub integrated project scanner called Prevent. So I think Prevent had the R capitalized too. Let me see if I can just find it that way.
Would that really matter?
Would what really matter?
Capitalization?
Just to narrow it down, probably. And I'll find this for you offline and send it to you. The video I was watching this morning was the SC Cyber Threat Brief, and that was Friday's Top Security News episode 20, and it's in there, man. So anybody who's like watching this who wants to go figure out what the fuck that tool is, it's in this freaking YouTube video, and I'll just post a damn link to it because it's probably easier and quicker for people to find than me trying to do this while also having a conversation and very distracted. I'm just going to paste that here where people can see it. There you go. So yeah, that's the gist of it.
So to get back on track, I wanted to move on to a different type of, like certain aspects of corporate culture. Let's say, like being a consultant for, let's say, a white label firm or like a typical pen test firm, whatever. You're a pen tester. Get a new client, maybe 2 clients a week, right? And it's really nice to be on the scoping calls with the management and everything and be able to ask your own questions, make sure everything's clear and precise, make sure everything's set, and then you can help modify the scope if need be. Versus when a sales guy oversells or does something dumb. So that's kind of why it's good to have freedom, and like it's good to think about that when you're choosing a job.
So, in my opinion, typical sales guys should never be scoping a pen test. What you should
Which unfortunately they do.
Agreed. But what you should be using is a sales engineer. Somebody who actually has technical knowledge on top of sales knowledge. Like my brother Richard, right? That dude knows freaking the equipment that he sells inside and out. So if a customer has a problem with it, like he can go freaking help them, right? When you have somebody scoping a pen test with a client, and arguably this is one of the most important things, because if you have scope creep as a result of a poorly scoped pen test, you can eat a lot of shit in terms of both the client being dissatisfied with what they're getting and also you eating shit with having to do a lot more work for a lot less money.
That's actually more important if you're doing it by yourself. If you're doing it through a company, they eat that.
Yeah, but it's different if a company's going to eat it versus so like corporate's different in different places. And when I've done pen tests white label for other people, different expectations for different shops. Like if you ever worked for Jimmy, he's very, very demanding in what he desires, right? Jimmy busts ass because he provides tests that are very high level. There's an expectation that you're going to do very good work, but he's going to make sure that you've done said work and check the boxes. Other companies are okay with the assholes doing VAs as pen tests, right? They would be happy with that because then the client's happy with that. And different clients want different things. We can't call them all pen tests if we're going to be delivering different things. So
Dude,
the
I
scoping call is
tore,
important.
man, this new job, right? They showed me the pen test report they've been using, and all it was a bold scan. And I'm like, what is the difference between this and your DASP scanner?
If it's one to
So,
one, you're having some major issues.
so I redid everything and sent it to the boss, and he just started laughing his ass off. He's like, I can't believe we were sending that other report out to our clients.
Yep. Arguably, you and I, the modifications we made to the report that we used on the last test were very good. I think we came up with an excellent template going forward that I'm sure you stole for other things, which I'm fine with.
Hey, whatever. Mixed match from all over the years.
Exactly. There needs to be more collaboration. Like, there are some good people in our industry who give back to the community. Like the guys over at Active Countermeasures, Black Hills, they give a lot back, right? You got like Dave Kennedy. They open source a lot of their internal tools on GitHub. They support a lot of the shit that goes on in terms of conference culture. I like when companies give back. I don't see a lot of big pen test firms giving back any more than we're going to send some guy to give out swag at your conference and pay for a booth. And I
Hey, I
think
like
that's kind of
swag.
bullshit. Look, who doesn't like swag? Dude, I got another pair of those Trusted Sec socks. I love those freaking socks, man. They're equivalent to the Bombas. Bombas are like the best freaking socks.
My last company gave out pairs of socks for Christmas one time, and it says sock 1 on the left foot and sock 2 on the right foot. I love it.
That is great. Arguably, you probably put them on backwards.
Probably.
Look, I'm all great. I get a T-shirt at a conference. I get some swag. I get like a nice, cup or whatever. Very cool. When I'm talking about giving back, I don't mean you send a vendor to a conference and somebody's trying to get you business there. I mean like you're actively engaged, trying to give back to not just like a conference itself, but the overall skill set of everybody who's attending the conference. Like you're giving out not just swag, you're helping in other ways besides that, like
Yeah,
culture
like
wise.
Kennedy giving his free webinars and releasing tools and shit. That's freaking awesome.
And arguably Strand does even more than Kennedy nowadays in
Yeah,
terms of
Strand's
like
great.
he's got weekly podcasts. His talk that just got released from Wild West Hacking Fest, the other one, not the one that I spoke at earlier, with another guy where they're wearing unicorn outfits together with complete with horns, is arguably one of the better talks that I've heard of people just really talking about the actual issues within our industry and the solutions to them that they found through years of doing this shit. And we need more of that, of people who like, I figured this thing out. Let me help you guys who are probably dealing with the same shit and contributing it. It's very much like when you have a problem with something and you go and search a forum and you find somebody who figured out the answer and then they don't tell you what the answer is and they just say, yeah, I figured it out and close the thread. It's like,
I
fuck you,
waded through
guy.
the mud so you don't have to.
Right. It's giving back that way, man. Like, show people where you fucked up, help them so that they don't fuck up, so that it can be better for everybody.
It's like I try, but I can only do so much. I'm no fuck. I'm not going to claim to be some expert at anything.
Look, you and I arguably are both fairly generalists when it comes to InfoSec, I would argue. Like you specialize in some things, I specialize in some things. But overall, there are some dudes who I refer to as like, say within the web app specific industry within pen testing, there are dudes who are so into web apps, it's kind of like a sexual identity to them. I call them
Yeah.
sexuals, and I stole that from somebody. But still, it's very much entrenched. Like there are some people who are so into what they do, they're so good at it. They're like mind blowing. They're able to figure these things out, chain different things together, come up with really unique attack chains that your average guy's just not going to find. Like you run burp scan across a website, even with all the best plugins in the world, you're not going to find this shit unless you actually know what the hell you're doing and actually beyond what they give away in that free course, which is also arguably one of the better courses you could take out there for web app shit from Burp.
That's actually
Or Swigger.
interesting. That's actually an interesting point because my entire pen testing career was multifaceted. I never had to kind of specific thing. I had to do all the things. So it's very general.
Right. Like there are some guys who are really good at going external, internal, kind of like what you take on that the cracking the perimeter course material from the OSCP. Like dudes who specialize in breaching firewalls in like a red team way. And I'm not talking your typical pen test. Like they will go and buy the same hardware appliance that the client has, and they will fuzz the shit out of it until they find a vuln that's not publicly disclosed and get in that way. That is way beyond what your average pen tester is going to do on an engagement when they've got a week to do a test. It's what you want to do generally is reduce your threat surface as a company. You can't account for everything. But what you can account for is the low-hanging fruit needs to get gone. The things that are easily fixed that could lead to a breach need to be prioritized over, say, something could be a CVSS of like 7.8, right? And could lead to somebody actually getting in without having to chain that with anything else. And something else could be a CVSS of like 9.9, but there's no POC code out for it. It hasn't been observed exploited in the wild. You should be prioritizing the 7.7 before the 9.9 because that's what you got to fix to prevent people from actually breaching you. If your SSO provider has a configuration issue that would allow for, say, what happened with the Google OAuth nonsense back in the day, where you could set up a website, if somebody authenticated to it with their Google account, you now own that person's Google account and everything's associated to it because there was a reuse issue. Like, that's a huge issue compared to, like, you got to fix the content security policy on this website that has no information in its back end that is even valuable to anybody. Like, you've got to prioritize shit. And like running a successful vulnerability management program is a lot of work. And it's not usually just one guy doing it. It's a team. A lot of corporations don't necessarily have a team. So it's one guy who's in charge who then reaches out to everybody else to get shit fixed. And that becomes a PM role. It's like different.
So that brings up an interesting topic. How do you prioritize when somebody wants you to make a risk matrix?
So when it comes to attack and defend from MITRE, there are tools that'll automatically categorize like attacks and shit like that into the appropriate boxes for you. Arguably, that information is useless to anybody who's not an auditor or like a CISO who doesn't understand how, like, say, a typical phishing attack could turn into a domain admin compromise when you've got hashes going across the network all the time and don't have SMB v2 like turned on properly with the encryption so that you are signing it instead of like unsigned everywhere. Arguably, servers should be signed by default, but I've seen companies that turn that off because they want the transport to be faster. Like, it's dumb mistakes like that, like not disabling LLM&R. Arguably, you don't need to do responder with LLM&R anymore, but like little things like that could be fixed that most people don't even know are an issue because there's not a CVSS score associated with passing the hash. There's not a CVSS score.
You know what I mean by a risk matrix, right? The red to yellow to orange to this big square, like a heat map kind of thing. To me, that's garbage, and I do not like that in a report. I think it's worthless.
Depending on your vuln-scan tool, if you're using what Nessus has, their corporate version called Insight VM, you have options of prioritizing outside of CVSS. There's another one they have that is kind of their take on risked actual compromise. I forget what the terminology they use is, but you can actually pick that as your default, and that will prioritize those kind of vulnerabilities that actually would likely be
risk versus likelihood, I think.
Yeah, I think it's likelihood of exploitation, but I don't know the acronym they use for it offhand. If you're using OpenVAS, you're pretty much stuck with what they give you, right? arguably a lot of the stuff that'll get you popped is not stuff that even has a CVSS score associated with it. It might have something on like the MITRE attack or defend framework associated with it. If you're going to get really into the nitty gritty, or if you're going to do like atomic red team and you like pull down an actual neutered exploit for it and try it and make sure you're defending. That's another thing that's very misunderstood in our industry that John Strand talked on when he was dressed as a unicorn, that I really hit hard, is that a lot of the way we're prioritizing vulnerabilities is not correct. We are really fucked up in prioritizing things by CVSS score and these metrics that don't actually show what would lead to you getting breached in the real world. It's not like we're going to watch this attack path and show A through Z. These tools that do attack simulation, whether it be Atomic Red Team, Attack IQ, or even using canaries in your environment to try and detect when shit's happening, they don't do a good enough job of working like a threat actor does. And a lot of the times a CISO or somebody who's managing that program is going to be like, yes, we can detect past the hash based on this signature that's written in Attack IQ, and we can detect all the techniques that App35 uses based on, they're the most likely one who's going to breach us based on the industry we're in. And we can detect all those techniques and we have signatures for them. But in the real world, when somebody's in your network, they're not necessarily going to follow that playbook, and they're going to chain things together in ways you have not thought of. And your tools that are supposed to be detecting this shit are literally just written to detect. It's like the difference in virus scanning between heuristic analysis and static. Static's not going to catch shit anymore because all the MD5 signatures and SHA-512 have been uploaded to VirusTotal. They're not using those when they're doing a test. They're generating a new payload.
And by the time you detect it, it's already game over.
Yeah. I mean, I saw this great talk at Wild West Hacking Fest where the guy talked about how these tools like CrowdStrike determine if something is actually something that's safe to run. And he built a tool that arguably it takes what would be a 1 meg file and turns it into 15 megs, but then CrowdStrike sees it as safe because he introduces a lot of entropy. Reduces entropy is the better way of saying it. So they look for specific things. Like if you're using this kind of compression, if you're using the Shikata Ganai, if you're encoded with say MSF Venom, it looks for these telltale signatures that this is a bad binary that are very common across all the tools you and I would use on a pen test to generate a malicious payload that we're going to get somebody to click on or that we're going to embed somewhere. And they can catch that shit really easy because it all looks the same. But when you start taking that same exact code and adding useless functions filled with random words of text in them and then compiling that, and it looks very different to these scanners and it's whitelisted. It's like, this looks safe code to me.
I could be wrong, but I swear it was unicorn.py that would go through and change all the function names to random freaking characters to where it wouldn't pick up on any signatures.
Unicorn's good at bypassing AMSI, and he uses a variety of different techniques on that. If you look at the commit history on the GitHub, which is trustedsec.com, github.com/trustedsec/unicorn, I believe. Dave used to maintain it mostly himself, and now other people do the majority of the updates to it. But over the years, he's come up with some very clever ways to get the built-in anti-malware service module built in the Windows to not recognize malicious code as malicious. There's different techniques he's used between obfuscation and other things, but replacing function names, I think, is fairly generic, like in terms of trying to not get detected. And if it's going to get compiled anyway, it really depends also on the compiler, how it's doing static linking, all that fun shit. I'm not a malware guy. I've taken some apart. I love what VX Underground does. Smelly's awesome. I keep nagging him to come on the podcast, and he won't come on the podcast. He's like, don't do interviews. All right. Well, it's not
an interview. Come shoot the shit.
Yeah, man. Smelly, come on our cast.
Don't stink.
Man. So like, I'm not great at reverse engineering software. I've done some of it with like Android shit to get apps for free. A lot of it, arguably, was just following along with InfoSec Ed Sheeran and I forgot his name again, John Hammond.
Yeah, he banged my cock.
Yeah, he has a great interview on Android malware reverse engineering. He has a few, but one of them is literally like shows you step by step how to take the APK apart, turn it into Java code, what programs to use to do that, and then how to comment out things that might be like, this is the difference between somebody who's paid for the app and somebody who has not, and just take that section out so the app goes right to the main function. So,
I like the one that the guys from Paul Security did. They did a really good one on Android about 5 years ago.
Paul Asadorian has consistently also been one of the guys who puts out really good content with this week with his podcasts. Arguably,
it was Pesci that did it.
Oh, I thought you meant other Paul. Okay.
Larry Pesci from Paul Security.
Okay.
He's
that
the
makes more sense. I was wondering why Paul would be doing that. So good on you for clarifying. Regardless, there's a lot of really great free content out there on the internet. Iron Geek's channel that you're probably watching this on has a metric shit ton of talks. Recently uploaded talks by Wild West Hacking Fest. A lot of good ones there. Also CCC. I still have not had time to go through all the CCC talks from this year. And they're all online and free for you to look at your perusal. Like, if you want to learn something, go learn it. And there's not really an excuse other than maybe bandwidth, right?
Well, there is an excuse. There's not enough hours in a day.
Hence bandwidth. I don't mean bandwidth on your computer. I mean your bandwidth. Dude, I used to sleep to Iron Geek Talks. It was like literally like everything he recorded would just be on a, like I would have to set the timer. Otherwise I'd miss, like I'd wake up and then it'd be like 2 talks later and I would like, which ones did I watch? Which ones did I not watch? Hard to keep track of shit. It'd be a cool project. You know that that website they've got to share like what book you're reading with other people and how much you like it, Goodreads? Doing something like that for like InfoSec talks, like when you really like a talk, like maybe write a quick summary of it and why you like it and share it and have that be like a platform for sharing InfoSec talks and like you just link to the video.
That would be cool. A really cool idea. I like that.
Let's fucking do that. We could have Evelyn build it for us.
And then you could be like, here's the time frame of what I actually thought was interesting and skip the fluff and get to the meat and potatoes.
Ooh, that's a good, dude. Recutting InfoSec talks right to the meat and potatoes too, like adding the timestamps, kind of like the pervs used to do with the YouTube videos. There was a whole investigation on that where like the chomos would be like literally sharing hyperlinks to the sections of like an upskirt for like a video of that kind of stuff, and like, but like the same kind of concept but used for good. Where if you're interested in a topic, like building a branch of like different timestamps in YouTube videos that show like that thing and then like making that like a platform that people could like, I'm interested in this topic, and then you kind of go on like a Wikipedia adventure, but through like timestamps of YouTube videos and like other things. I think it'd be cool.
Should we make this part of OnlyPones?
You know, we got to use that domain for something other than my phishing engagements, because at this point, if you hit that in Chrome, it's going to warn you anyway. So it's going to be a trouble to get that whitelisted anyway. But
we can call it talktalks.onlypone.com.
There you go. We can use that domain for it probably. Man. Core topic, culture at companies, man. Arguably, if you're not a good culture fit at a company, you're not going to last there. Ev went for her last interview, I think, tomorrow for that company. I really hope she gets it because she's freaking awesome. I will miss the shit out of her if she can't work as much on my projects, but arguably she should be making a lot more than I'm able to pay her anyway. Mm-hmm. And like, but last one is going to be the culture fit interview. It always is. If you have multiple interviews for a job outside of the usual 2, one with a recruiter, one with the actual guy who's hiring, one of them is usually going to be the culture fit. and they're going to have a bunch of people you'll work with who'll come on like a Zoom call if it's done over remote, or if you're in person, you're going to go to the office and meet these people. And you got to really present the best version of yourself during that, man.
Yep.
I'm not saying be fake, but like be on your best behavior.
I like to say kind of like what CrowdStrong says. Every day is shut the fuck up Friday. These people aren't your friends, they're your coworkers.
Right. Like arguably it'd be nice if your coworkers could be your friends, but if you're in a management position, that's really hard as a dynamic.
I mean, like when there's money involved and you say anything off-colored or offend somebody, you just got to be really careful.
Agreed. You also have to use corporate language. You have to be very generic and bland. You can't show emotion in an email even when you're pissed off. You can do the corporate version of fuck you, like, as per our previous communication, I have asked you to do X, Y, and Z. It is X, Y, and Z date, which is past the project deadline, and I would like an update as to when these items would be accomplished. Like that kind of shit is
like,
kind of corporatese for asshole.
It's like my last job, we had a side chat where I could just shoot the shit, cuss, show dirty memes, just fuck off, right? And now that I'm in this corporate government job, it's like, is anybody having fun? Can I even type LOL in anything?
There's a different expectation of communications through corporate channels than there are through unofficial channels. And like CrowdStrong said, they're not your friends, they're your coworkers. Arguably, there's some people at my job I would like to be friends with. I've even tried to a degree. It's very hard with people on my own team. There's somebody who's on a different team who I'm very good friends with. But the people on my team, we don't socialize outside of work. There have been efforts from corporate to do like mandatory fun. Arguably, forcing people to do mandatory fun is the least effective way to get a team to be built to trust themselves. Like, oh, we're going to go do a corporate golf event together. It's like, I don't golf. I don't, it's like, we're going to force everybody into a room until you like each other. It is not the way to make a team work.
I did like going to Topgolf for a corporate event because we didn't play golf. We got drunk at the bar and just had fun chatting.
We did a corporate thing at Topgolf, and I had lost my wallet that day and was really freaked out.
Again?
This was the time I lost my wallet, you know? I was freaking out because, like, how am I going to fly home? Like, I didn't know the TSA, like, how they let you fly without ID if you can verify with a credit card. Like, I didn't know that. I was freaking out trying to find my ID, file a police report, and they're all doing the golf stuff. And, like, when it's my turn, I get up and go. And then, like, the feedback I got was, like, you were too distracted on your phone during the golf event where we're trying to bond as a team. It's like, dude, I was worried about my freaking wallet and my ability to get back home in one piece. It is probably more important than bonding at this point, you know?
You got reprimanded for that? Man,
unofficially reprimanded as far as reasons why my boss does not like me in a call when we were discussing that.
The last team meeting I was at a bar in, I forget what state we were in, but we were at some bar, and one of the interns comes up to me and he's like, Steve, I want to suck your dick. And he sits there on the couch going, and we got him on video and made a meme out of it. So we had to pull him aside and be like, dude, chill. No more drinking for you.
Yeah, you got to be able to hold your beer.
He's a manager now.
That doesn't surprise me. Peter Principle at work, promote to the level of your incompetence, man.
Needless to say, that was awkward.
Of course it was fucking awkward. I'm an awkward motherfucker. Like, I can be social for a little bit, but then the autism comes back and it's hard. It's like, then I gotta go, like, de-stress somewhere and find a quiet place and, like, recharge my social batteries. But, like, in a corporate environment, when you're, like, doing the bonding and fun shit together, supposedly, like, mandatory fun shit,
quote,
you can't be yourself, man. Unless you're at a company.
You absolutely cannot.
Unless you're at a company that's got that kind of culture, which is usually going to be a startup or arguably maybe a smaller pen test firm, that is not seeing like thousands of clients, like maybe a small team of guys who do this shit together for fun, you could be yourself, but don't be yourself. Even then.
I have noticed though, if you've got tenure, there's a lot of leeway there.
We're not fucking professors at a college. There's no tenure in our industry unless you're
Like,
the owner
let's
of
say
the
you've been
company.
in the company for 4 or 5 years. That was my case where I just didn't care. And the bosses, they live next to me. We have cigars and shit all the time. I wasn't too worried about it.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's ways to fuck up even in our industry. Like, you can be really well regarded, doing everything right at the top of your game, and then an employee comes out and says, you did X, Y, and Z, and you're fucked. Like, your reputation's gone. We've
Well, at
seen
the
that
end of the
with
day,
people.
just don't be fucking retarded.
That's the good rule of thumb. Don't be a fucking asshole at work. Be an asshole outside of work when you're not representing your company officially. If I were doing a pen test and I fucked around in the ways that I would if I were emulating a threat actor in a more realistic scenario, arguably I would not do very well on said pen test.
There are some things that I've done that were super sketch, and I had my corporate T-shirt on, but I had the know before to turn my T-shirt inside out so the logo wasn't showing because I knew I was on camera.
Did you say you had the know before too? I thought that was a plug for that phishing service for a second there.
I couldn't think of a better word. The know-with-all.
Dude, like I've done arguably really dumb things over the years, things that I now think of and cringe, right?
They make great stories.
Rarely ever was I acting in an official capacity for a company when doing them. Arguably, even when I was younger and like really new at this, when I would go out of scope just to see what was there, and then like that was stupid, right? And even more dumb when I actually found something and now couldn't report it because I found it while I was out of scope. It's like, what are you gonna do?
And that's a moral conundrum when it's actually a big deal.
Right. I mean, I've given really good reports and then come back a year later and seen the same shit not fixed, and just wondering how they haven't gotten popped yet. And it's like, it really hurts, like from like a weird emotional place for me when like I do my diligence and then I come back and it's the same shit later, like a year later, and they didn't fix it and they didn't probably even read the report. It's like oddly emotional for me, but I need to be able to put that in a box and not let it affect me professionally, where I am outwardly showing that when I'm giving a pen test report presentation or interacting with a client. Like, you have to compartmentalize. You can't be having a fucking emotional meltdown in front of a client if you want to actually work in this industry. You gotta freaking be able to act professionally when you're acting in a professional manner.
Jiminy Cricket's like, say it, but your paycheck's like, nah, you probably shouldn't say anything.
It's another thing, like, it's kind of taboo to discuss your paycheck with your coworkers, how much you make. It can cause division and cause arguments. Arguably, I've asked other people, hey, what do you make? I've arguably also been both upset and happy at the answer, depending on the job. Like, finding out my team lead made less than me at one point was not necessarily something that helped my situation at work,
I've never seen it cause issues, but it did help all of us negotiate our raises at the end of the year.
Right. But it's considered like taboo, but it's not illegal. And some companies try to make it seem like it is. If you discuss that stuff with other employees, like, you get in trouble. Arguably, you should, because it's nothing that's illegal. It's not like trade secret shit,
It's like one company, they're like, hey, we're going to make you a senior. You're going to go from 92 to 97. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I should be at least 125. So I talked to the manager, and they're like, okay, we'll give you 127, but no bonus. So I'm like, fine, let's do it. That's fine. Because I don't want to be on that 100 grand, like right there to the 95 to 105 tax bracket, because it's not worth the raise at that point. So you got to put me over or keep me under.
It's another thing, budgets, man. when you're dealing in the corporate world, budgets are very different than startup world and very different from when you're running your own company. There's a set amount of money in the budget, and they can get budget approval for certain line items outside of that, especially in like a big company. But if your team needs to buy a tool that they don't have, that could be somebody's salary for the year, and they're going to find a way to pay for it. And that could very well be your job if you're the guy who's paid the most on the team. And that's also something to consider.
That also is a big thing. I've noticed over the last couple of years that the first people to go are the highest paid.
Sometimes the first people to go are the most recent hired too. It really depends on the company culture.
Mm-hmm.
First in, first out kind of shit.
Well, the new guys, they think they can train up to indoctrinate to their culture. Usually it's a budget cut, so they go after the guys that are paid the most, that might not, I guess you would say, meet expectations, I guess. I've seen that 3 times this year. Like outside my purview, I just know a lot of people, and I've seen that happen.
Dude, once I was working for this pen test company for, they had been an MSSP and they were branching out into pen testing. And they hire me. The guy who had been at the company before me in my role had fallen like months behind on tests. Literally, like, supposed to be doing PCI segmentation scans, supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z. And they also had like all these tunnels to the places that were supposed to be doing testing, and none of the tunnels were even configured or up. So like if you need to do it, you then need also, on top of all the work you got to do, configure a freaking tunnel on both ends and also coordinate with the customer to get the tunnel up. So it was like a cluster F of backlogged work. And I worked there for 3 months. We parted ways. I found out after they were bad-mouthing me to the customers, saying the reason their thing hadn't been done, that was on the back burner arguably for months before I even took over the role, was my fault that I didn't do it, and bad-mouthing me all over town. Like I heard that from another person they let go, who was the HR lady. They fired their HR lady the same day that they told me I needed to resign, and I essentially had the option of resigning or being let go. So I chose resign to keep my dignity there, and then regretted it later when I couldn't get health insurance from stuff. But
it's kind of funny being on the other side of that coin, because I've got a handful of people that all I have to say is 5 words that they be banned from anywhere in the industry. But I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and let sleeping dogs lie.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a need to keep the past in the past, arguably. You don't necessarily need to let the past rule you, but you should keep it in mind when you're making decisions in the future.
Yeah.
So there's no need for retribution or being like, F those guys, I'm going to out them, or like, this company sucks. It's more about...
I hate the guys that do. Forgive and forget, let it go.
Right. We're not freaking anonymous out here. It's not, we do not forgive, we do not forget, expect us. It's more like, hey, put that shit behind you.
We forgive,
poison.
But we don't forget. But when I say I forgive, I mean it.
Well, good, dude. Forgiveness is a virtue, I'd argue. The Christians have something to that, the whole, forgive, arguably.
Yep.
Not forget.
I can't necessarily forget, but forgive is one thing.
Dude, I had somebody, I outsourced a white label pen test to some guy once that arguably it was not a well-paying gig, right? So it had been like already 3 times sorted through. This company hires that company. This company hires that company. By the time it got down to me, it was barely worth my time. So I got a junior guy who claimed to have all this experience in the world do it. And I was so disappointed in this report. I literally just redid the whole thing myself, and I still paid him. But my God, the expectation of what he claimed he could do versus what he delivered really like miffed me, man. And I just wanted to like go blackball the guy, be like, this guy sucks. But I bit my tongue, and now he's actually pretty decent at what he does. He just needed more experience, and he was just too full of himself, you know?
So hold up. Did you give him feedback on the report?
Of course I did. I walked him through everything on that report. I showed him where he effed up, things he could have done better. I gave him good feedback. I literally used the Word comment thing. I took the PDF, converted it to a Word doc, and then went into the review tab and I added like little notes everywhere. And then I had a meeting with him and walked him through everything that he did different and how he could have done it better. He did get better over time. Like I used him one more time after a friend who had used him told me he had really gotten better. And I'm like, fine, I'll give him another shot. And he gave me a really good report.
Dude, we could make a whole episode about report writing.
Arguably, if you can get in but can't explain how you did it, it's not very valuable to the client.
It's like when I first started, like my first pen test report was dog shit. There were more notes that I had written in the report itself. And over time, I started to realize, oh, I think I know what you want now. So then I just scrapped everything, fuck off with their report template, and did my own. And now that company's still using mine to this day.
I like how you changed your title there to the paper bag you can't get out of. Very good. But arguably, for a number of years, I would have considered myself pretty lame by my standards now. Like, when I was signing off on people's pen tests when I worked at Atlas, I was the head of that team. Like, that was my job. I ran the team. We had a couple of guys who did it internally, a couple of guys who did it externally, who were like 1099 contractors. But at the end of the day, their name was on the report and my name was signing that it was, I checked it over, I looked it over, made sure everything was good. Some of the stuff that they did, I still can't do to this day. I need to get better at some things. I'm not like an expert on everything. But if I at least compare how I was then to how I am now, I see that I've had like an upward trajectory and learning more shit and getting better over time. Where some people are just kind of complacent. They don't have the mindset that's needed for this work. It's just a 9 to 5 for them. They're not passionate about it, where it's like they live and breathe it like you and I do.
Mm-hmm. But I want to reiterate on the importance of the report. You can find absolutely nothing. But if your report is good, you're fine. And when I say good report, I'm talking your grammar has to be on point. You have to prove you did your work. Do not make a single mistake. Make it look as professional as freaking possible.
Good screenshots to show what you did. Explaining the screenshots underneath them with a little bit of a caption. Having things
and all the
formatted
details.
well.
All the details. Like, you don't want to put a block of code. You want a screenshot of the code with like a frame around it and a caption.
Right.
Make it look professional.
A lot of these things are not things you're going to get out of the templated reports that a lot of people are using. It needs to be developed over time and improved upon with feedback from clients. It's like, you don't just come out writing great reports like day one.
And then you got those people that'll take a screenshot of scanner output. And I'm like, bro, what?
It's arguably different if it's burp output, though, because sometimes that is kind of the only thing you can put to show what you did. Like,
I mean, take a screenshot of the request, sure, but not, hey, this is the finding that burp found with the severity rating graph thing on there. Don't do that.
Oh, agreed. There's nuance, man, and like reports get better over time as you do them more. So one thing I found out recently, PlexTrack, that platform that you and I have both evaluated at one point or another, is now encouraging concurrent documentation. So as you are pen testing that day, rather than taking screenshots and coming back to them later and then explaining what you did in the report, you're encouraged to actually put them in right away, put your scanner tool output right away. And it literally, like, you're working on the report as you're working on the pen test, which I think is a good paradigm shift in terms of getting shit done more efficiently. Because if you're doing both at the same time, there's no report to write after. It's done when you're doing it.
So, PlexTrack, I have 3 years plus experience using that. And the best thing I see about it is when you make a finding, you can save it in a library. So let's say LLM&R or whatever.
You template it out.
And then you can just copy paste it into the report, and you just fix out or fill out the IP ranges and whatever that was affected. So it saves a lot of time that way, but it does not automate shit.
Arguably, yes, it does not automate shit. We're not talking about automating. We're talking about concurrent documentation.
It's just nice because I used to have like all my findings that I would have over the years. I keep it in a Word doc. Like, hey, I can probably copy paste this and just change the IPs. Seen this before, copy paste, got my table, my nice little vulnerability section, finding section, whatever. Just change the IPs, call it a day. PlexTrack does that for you.
Yeah, arguably, like there are cheaper tools, way cheaper tools that do a lot of the same. They just don't have the built-in collaboration features that PlexTrack has.
I've never even used the collaboration features in PlexTrack.
I haven't either, but when I was talking with their freaking guy at Wild West Hacking Fest for a couple of minutes, he was explaining to me how like they're trying to encourage this paradigm shift of concurrent documentation, do all reporting, so that when you finish your actual test, you then don't have to then go back and write a report because you're writing the report while you're doing the test. So I think that's kind of a cool idea.
It injects, well, yeah, what's the word? You can inject vulnerability scan and findings and stuff, but at the end of the day, if you do it by default, it's a vuln scan at that point. So you have to manually go through there, see which ones you want, and blah, blah, blah. And if it's just a vuln scan, 95% of that stuff you're not even going to want to put in the report.
Arguably, yes. Now, there's a difference, I'd argue also. Like you were saying, you can have a test where you don't actually get in and you're not successful, but still have a good report. At that point, that good report is going to be very similar to a VA because you are showing that you tried all these things and then none of them were a valid attack path in for you to get in. So that you at least show your due diligence at that point.
That's actually one of the things I'm struggling with my current company. I got a meeting with them tomorrow about it because you saw my scenario section that I put on that last report, me and you did, right? They are trying to argue that all they want is findings. They don't want to know how you got to where you did, what you did, anything. They just want to know if you found anything. And I'm sitting here like, what is the difference between this and the DAST scan you're getting? There is no difference.
So the way that government organizations tend to do patch management and prioritizing vulnerability scans is different than a lot of other companies and organizations. When I worked for local government back in New York, they didn't even have really like a SOC, arguably, and they weren't even doing packet captures across the network back then. What they did do, though, is they would do software inventories. They'd get a list through CCM at the time, or SMS, I think it was called back then, of all the software on all the computers, which was in a giant database. And then they'd cross-reference that against the newest version of the software. And if the software had been updated because of like a vulnerability or if it was just like a feature improvement, and then prioritize pushing those. And they would use really kind of ghetto tools to push software updates like PDQ deploy on like a technician computer, which is great if you're in like maybe a small business, if you have like 10 or 15 computers, but not when you're in a government with thousands. So from my experience working in government, they don't want to know the why. They want to know this is who I need to assign this to go fix this thing. And this is the bare minimum I need to pass along to that guy to get him to fix it. They don't want to know that you can chain these exploits together and do this thing. They just want to know, what's the thing I got to fix? Because at the end of the day, they're more prioritized on GRC than they are patch management or vulnerability assessment. It's more like checking the boxes that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So a pen test report for like a government, they're going to get one a year anyway from like an external pen test firm. A lot of the times they will then take those findings and do exactly what you're now being told to do at the end of the day, where they just take the actual vulnerabilities and maybe even like 80 group changes that need to be made, or like group policy changes that need to be implemented, break them into individual tickets, assign them to the person who does it, and just fix it that way. It's a lot less involved than like your typical pen test review.
Yeah, that's kind of where the SAS and DAS comes in because it there's so many ways to look at it. The way I'm seeing it right now is it's trying to justify the CI/CD pipeline and justify keeping people busy, I guess. The last meeting I was on, they were saying it might not be exploitable, but we want to fix it anyways, just in case. Let's say it's just an outdated library, no known exploits, no CVE, nothing. It's just old. Fix it anyways. So they throw that on the ticket list of things to fix. And then the pen test comes in, and then we're trying to find things that are exploitable. And that's where I see the difference between a pen test and a bolt scan is. The pen test report should only have things that are exploitable,
right,
and prove that they are exploitable. Not just, oh, hey, look, we found all the same shit your DAS scanner did.
Like arguably a website not having a content security policy should not be a finding at all, because unless you've also got some kind of injection-based vulnerability, cross-site scripting based vulnerability in the website on top of not having a content security policy or some way of doing like clickjacking in the website, why the hell then tell them they need to put a CSP on it if there's nothing underneath it that would require that protection? And putting a CSP can be a huge lift when you're running, say, WordPress or something, where there's a bunch of plugins and each one of them has a script, and you now have 5,000 scripts, and each one needs to have a nonce or a hash to find that a content security policy is not going to get done.
I actually asked my coworker today. I was like, hey, I've got a flag for clickjacking, which I've never not had a flag for clickjacking in Burp, and I never report on it. And I was like, hey, do you ever report on this? And he said, yeah. I was like, well, okay, I can demonstrate it, I guess, if we want.
Demonstrate it and exploit it, then you report on it. But if you don't have the ability to exploit it and it's just a tentative, there's no reason to report it because you can't exploit it in a pen test.
Clickjacking. Like I can exploit it with beef and shit, but yeah.
Beef browser exploitation framework is great, right? I remember many, many years ago now, Charles Schreier, who was a regular on the Iron Geek cast back then, BSD Bandit, came on and demonstrated beef to me for the first time, and it blew my mind because he did the whole trick with Firefox where he had essentially the beef tab where he had gone to a vulnerable website that he himself set up and then injected beef into. And then in a completely separate tab in Firefox had his Gmail account open, and then showed how through beef he was able to see all the messages in that Gmail account and even click in and read them. And it blew my mind. I was like, how is that possible?
Cool as
hell. It literally was one of the coolest freaking things I'd seen back then. I was just like, no idea that was a thing. Cross-site scripting vulnerabilities oftentimes are also dismissed from bug bounties, which I argue is not something they should be doing. There's difference between like reflected cross-site scripting and like a lot of other
stored things. Cooler.
Stored versus reflected. And like, say you get injection, right? If it's an error-based injection, or there's all these fucking little nuanced things.
Last I checked, there's like 12 versions of XSS.
I think stored and reflected are kind of the two big priorities.
Yeah, those are the main ones.
We could also talk about like DOM-based cross-site scripting and all that fun shit that is very difficult to exploit unless you really know what the hell you're doing. I've seen some cool like attack chains where they combine cross-site scripting in with other stuff and eventually get like LFI to include a file from an external web server into the code of a page. And then when somebody else, like cache poisoning attacks are pretty cool too. I've arguably never been able to get a cache poisoning attack working on a pen test, but I have in the lab environment, and that is
I've never seen one in the wild yet.
It's cool. Now, CDNs have had cache poisoning attacks hit them that they've been affected by, and then essentially you're serving vulnerable things like jQuery to thousands of people, introducing vulnerabilities into websites. OWASP does a good job of explaining what the issues are, how to fix them, a lot of their write-ups and their lab and their vulnerable machines they put out and the tools they have are good starting points if you're in the web app shit.
I wish they wouldn't do top 10. They should do top 20.
I think top 10 is enough for most people.
Because it keeps changing.
Look, it used to be SQL injection was on the top 10, and now it's injection-based attacks because there's a lot more than just SQL injection, right? There's more things you can inject than just SQL. So arguably it's going to evolve over time with feedback. And other things are also going to be exploited more often than not. Like, it's rare nowadays, unless you're in a lab environment, the 1=1 trick is going to work on a login form, right? But it still can happen.
My point, though, is I was asked a question during an interview about frameworks, like MITRE ATT&CK framework, OWASP, stuff like that. And I was like, yes, I'm familiar with all of them. And I proceeded to explain that, well, pen testing is fluid and dynamic. You can't just follow a playbook. You got to kind of feel it out, go by your experience, follow hunches, and just explore everything. There's no rule set you can follow. Like, there's no guide to actually find these things. These are only starting points of things to look at.
There's a lot of research involved too, and like practice before you try and actually exploit it in production. Especially on a pen test, you don't want to knock shit over. So like being able to use Docker, spin up like something close to it, grab a machine from VulnHub that's got a similar issue, practice against it before tossing an exploit in the production system. There are things that should be done more often, but arguably are not because pen tests are time constrained. So
no, you just eat it and hope they have insurance.
It depends on the client, man. If you're pen testing financial sector shit, downtime's a big issue, dude.
Yeah.
Like
30 some freaking $1 million a minute.
Yeah. They would rather a vulnerable system be allowed online a lot of the times than take down something that's earning them millions of dollars every day to patch it for a little bit, which could also be an issue. It's all that back to that CIA triangle and making those executive decisions, I'd argue, which is not something I want to be doing. I would rather just hack shit, which is more fun, arguably. And look, VA stuff is cool too. Like I manage the external attack surface for a big company. It's not easy. Is multiple tools reporting different things, prioritizing what's actually an issue versus what a tool thinks is an issue, checking the KEV, looking at what's actively being exploited, cross-referencing that to what's in your environment. A lot goes into this shit, man. Now that you're in my wheelhouse, we'll have to meet more often outside of the podcast and compare notes because I can probably help you streamline some shit that would make your job a little easier because I learned from having to do it myself.
I don't know how much pull I have in things, but we can give her a shot. The manager likes me, so I might actually have some sway.
Well, there you go, man.
I warned them about one piece of software, and so far it looks like they've already switched to something else. So I was like, yeah.
Yeah, man.
They were trying to use Archer, and I brought that up in another conversation with the side chat, and everybody just started laughing at the idea of it. I was like, okay, tell me why, yada, yada, yada. So I took all the recommendations, told it to my boss, and he was like, noted. And that's all he said.
Noted. That's good corporate politics shit. It's like they don't want to give you an attaboy, but they'll if they fix it, you know you did the right thing.
Yeah.
Archer. I haven't used Archer in a while. Doesn't that like have the module for mass scan and nuclei and a bunch of other shit built in?
Well, Archer is, how do you explain it? It's like a vulnerability management ticketing thing. So we're thinking about fuck Archer. They're going to tie it directly into Snow. Well, no, I think they're going into check marks now. And then that ties into Snow.
So that's another thing in the corporate environment. The tools that are the best for the job are not oftentimes going to be the ones that are going to tie into ServiceNow and other things. Like I was talking with Jimmy about this because WizQuaz is freaking amazing, but there's no easy path to take that data and get it into ServiceNow if you're using it as like a periodic vuln scan against company infrastructure, which arguably is a big selling point of some of the other programs that are out there that don't do as good of a job as his. Because if you're not integrating with the corporate tools, you're losing out on all those potential customers who could use your shit, make money,
Plug a link to Lost Rabbit Labs, WizQuas.
All right. Banners. All right.
Check this dude's software out. He even dropped the price so anybody can use it. It's awesome.
Was it .com, right? WizQuas.com.
It's LostRabbitLabs.com.
Well, WizQuas specifically is all right. I'll just put Lost Rabbit Labs.
I don't know if WizQuas has its own URL yet.
It does. We use it. Remember?
We have our own
instance, but if you go to the parent scope to domain, he's got sales literature up there now.
Oh,
that was one of the things he fixed first when we told him about that. Like, anyway, Jimmy's freaking awesome, by the way. I got to hang out with him when I was. Shout out. No, that dude's great. Like, arguably, I have not had as fun of a time just having dinner with somebody and shooting the shit that I did with him in a while. He's a very good guy. Go buy his shit, please.
Did you see that video of him at CactusCon that I never knew until last month?
No, but I did hear about what you did at CactusCon this year.
No, a couple of years ago, he paid one of our other buddies in an IRC chat to video it. And I was chatting it up with somebody, and he was like, I'm going to go slap Sledge with some salt. So he filled his handful of salt, walked up to me, and slapped it on my back. And I
didn't turn around and shake his hand.
Yeah.
That's you. That's the Sledge, man. I saw you posted that video to Facebook not long ago. That's why I remember it.
I was like, man, I didn't even know you did that.
I think we should maybe have it kind of come to a close unless we have a few more things to talk about.
Oh, I do need to pee.
Well, do you have an
Do we have a cool outro?
We got our standard outro. I don't have anything special planned for this one. I had tried to generate a video for this episode. I just did not get to make an outro in time. So let's see what we got here in our list of videos that we can play.
I will add, though, when you get into a corporate environment, tread lightly. Don't be too smart too quick. If you're the smartest one in the room, don't make it apparent.
Hide it. It's better to be silent and thoughtful than to open your mouth and remove all doubt.
Yeah.
All right, let's go with this one.
Welcome to Counter-Surveil, where the shadows of cybersecurity meet the light of critical analysis. I'm your host, Havoc, here with Sledge and the Counter-Surveil team. We're here to uncover the truths that others miss, and shoot the shit and talk InfoSec while having some fun. This week, the Power School breach highlights a critical flaw. No.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.